And welcome everybody. Ondy is back with a follow-up from last night. We get her presentation.
Okay.
You ready to go?
Yeah, we're done. So Terry and Sheila, I can't see you. We'd love to see you, but you go with what work. I can.
Because they're on the side, just you have your presentation on the main screen.
Well, that's all you need to see is the presentation. Right?
If you want to,
but I can see. No, I can see.
they don't have the
them,
videos
but
on.
they don't have
They
their.
don't have the videos.
The videos on. And it does help if you need to, wash your face or do your hair. We're relaxed here anyway, just a suggestion. So welcome back. And anyway, while I'm presenting, I'll come back to the gallery view if we're going to do discussion or take some questions and answers, but for the time being, I'm going to focus on my presentation. So let's put this up there. So thank you for returning, which is a good sign for me because it means you're interested, and something that I introduced last night sparked something within you. And of course, this approach is really a secular approach. So I want to talk as if I'm talking to an audience who don't know anything about Buddhism, right? The basics, because this is how it has been designed. But I am aware that probably all of you, on Zoom and certainly here, have a lot of Buddhist understanding. But it is kind of useful sometimes to take a fresh view, and sometimes you go, oh, I haven't thought about it like that, because I know that within Tibetan Buddhism, there are the texts and the ways of learning, and it's very structured, yeah. So sometimes to just take a break from that and look at it, with a fresh perspective can be helpful. So I hope you find that. And obviously, when we discuss things, you're bringing your knowledge and experience to the course as well, which is fantastic. So I just want to briefly introduce the content of the course this weekend, and then we'll start with a meditation. So as I mentioned yesterday, I was referring to what do you mean by spiritual, and what are we rebelling against? Yeah. So with spirituality, my main focus yesterday was to talk a little bit about all the different views of what we mean by spiritual. And I gave the example of people thinking that you're talking about getting in contact with spirits, yeah, but that's spiritualism, yeah, and also that we have this sense of, you hear a lot of people going, well, that was like a spiritual experience, wasn't it? And what they mean is that it somehow, perhaps in a spine-tingling way, lifted them out of the ordinary experience. So spiritual, to recap, is non-physical. And if we're talking about ourselves walking the spiritual path, what we're saying is that we're dealing with aspects of ourselves that are non-physical. And that's difficult, yeah, because we are these incredibly earthed physical beings that experience the world through our senses and respond accordingly. So to be in touch with that spirituality might sometimes, yes, be an occasion when you see a beautiful sunset and it lifts you into a quiet place and you feel connected with something other than yourself. Yeah? So that also is like the awe and wonder, as perhaps certain religious practitioners would say, of God's creation, even that we're wow, this is amazing, but it's not really focusing on developing your spiritual selves. It's just like moments where you recognize there's more. There's definitely more to life than this physical meaty being that I'm in, yeah, that we're all in. Okay, so it's not rebelling against that at all, but what it's saying is that we really need to take a tough stance on that physical aspect of ourselves that is leading ourselves into so many situations that actually don't bring us happiness. And I introduced the concept, and you will be aware of it as well, the concept of the ego. Now, the ego, many psychologists will tell you, we need an ego. We need a healthy ego. We don't want a child to grow up with no sense of itself. But this ego self is very much a structured self. It gradually becomes itself and forms an identity in which it is able to communicate with others and feel that we are something. And we call that, in Buddhism, self-grasping. Here I am, this is my physical self, and this is how I experience the world. So with spiritual rebellion, we're going, wait, that ego is healthy and useful, and it is your conventional self. It is you. Don't think that you don't exist. You do. Here I am. I've got a name. I've got a past. Hopefully, I've got a future. You know, here we are. Don't think that you don't exist. But that ego self is grasping at the physicality of your experience. It's grasping at you, who you think you are, and it's grasping at everything that you come into contact with as a way of defining yourself. And that is definitely one of the things we need to think, no, that may be what people who don't understand what spirituality is do, but it's simply because they don't know. They don't understand. They haven't come into contact with another way of living your life. So we're going to rebel. We're going to go, oh, every time you raise yourself up and start being negative, destructive, asserting yourself, which hurts others, anything which kind of builds a little wall around yourself, we're going to go stop. So what do we need to do? We need to develop the spiritual self. So the spiritual self has a voice, okay? So that you learn to hear that voice and nurture that aspect of yourself. Then you're following the spiritual part. Now you could do this in all religions, but one of the other things, and I keep losing our little mouse, I'll just use this then. One of the things that that can be a problem, and this may be controversial, but one of the problems with finding a religion is then we adhere to the structure of that religion. And often, and we talked again about this a little bit yesterday, we fall into the trap of spiritual materialism. So we're unable to listen to our own voice because we're giving ourselves away to some higher voice or some words that have been passed on to us. And I know through experience that you can easily get into the trap of going, well, I'm doing this because Geshe-la told me. Geshe-la told me that this is, or you can't go here because Geshe-la says we mustn't do that. And you lose your autonomy. And you believe that you're giving yourself over to a greater spiritual cause. It's not only within our tradition, this is common throughout religion that you get leaders, charismatic leaders, and it's almost like we fall into the trap of thinking, wow, I found my spiritual father usually. I found my spirit, and they're going to take me if I do what they tell me, because I'm not like them, I'm lesser. So that gradually can start to happen. So that's all we have to take care of. Religion gives us loads of wonderful tools for self-development, but I'll tell you this, a lot of this, and I'm not trying to sell my book, but I'm telling you this, that in my book, there's bits of my story. And what happened was when this is relevant, and I referred a bit to this yesterday, maybe. What happened to me is that I went on a 3-week course at a big centre in the Lake District. It was one of the first that Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, wasn't the first, I think the first one was in Australia. It was a huge old Gothic mansion and they got it dead cheap and about 80 of us lived there. And I went on a course there and wonderful Geshe Tekchog, who has since passed, was there, and another Geshe. And of course, Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe were whizzing around the world establishing centres. So they weren't even my first contact with Buddhism. So unlike some of the people who were there allowing it to develop, I actually came from a regular job and I was a school teacher. I was teaching drama in a mining town on the northeast coast of them. So I didn't have to go far, just to west. But one thing led to another, and me and my partner at the time, husband number 2, I like to call him. There's been 3. So husband number 2 and we came on this 3-week course, and by the end of it, our minds were just blown. Our minds were really blown. So we went back. And it wasn't like we were hippie, we didn't have anything, we just lived there. We went back and we thought, right, you know, we want to live there, we want to work there, we want to be part of this amazing development. So we gave up our teaching jobs, handed in our notice, sold our house. Oh, yeah, really. Really kind of hardcore, and moved in. And of course, they'd never seen anybody turn up with a furniture van like ours. And then we had to gradually sell it all off. So it was a major life change. And you know, those getting back to the point of this, and I'm not sure I can remember what the point was. What is the point? Why am I telling this story?
Spiritual materialism and listening to charismatic leaders.
Yes, exactly. So yes, so that's a bit of a preamble, but I thought you'd find it interesting. The thing is, I'm speaking from experience, because what happened there was a schism, a major schism. And what happened was that one of the Geshes, because they'd never met the Lamas either, formed his own following. And that created a big division. It went against the Dalai Lama. And before you know where you were, there were people having, well, Geshe-la says this and Geshe-la says that. And there was some of us who went, I don't agree. And I feel those people are the ones who get their autonomy. So important, because it's so easy, and that's why you get all the problem with cults. And at one point that was suggested that it was actually had become a cult because they were into the cult of the teacher. They were into the cult of the teacher. So massive fallout. I lived there for 13 years. Wow. 13 years studying. Met husband, got rid of husband number 2, met husband number 3. I can't see your faces, but I hope you're enjoying this. And had children, you know, and went back to teaching because my husband was a very poor artist and somebody had to earn the money. So I went back to teaching and in some ways was living an ordinary life, but within the community. Then this big schism happened. And that's a huge teaching. It really is. It's been a huge teaching for me. And it was extremely painful. And I was actually banned from ever going there, and my family and all my descendants. Have you heard of that before? That's extraordinary, isn't it?
And your descendants, wow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know if anybody remembers anymore. If I walked down there, they would recognise me, but I wouldn't want to be there. But it was a huge thing, and that was because coming back to the point of this, and I think it's a very valuable point, is that religion, if we use it in the right way, if we understand how it's supporting our growth, is fantastic. And if we have teachers who guide us, then it's wonderful, because it's tough on your own to walk the spiritual path. And for instance, you know, this group and my experience, you know, despite all that, I had other wonderful teachers. And yeah, it's made my life very rich. But what was important was one teacher, and that was Nanna, she's saying to me at some point, don't ask me any more questions. I trust your inner guru. And I think somehow we've got to think of a name or an identity for this quiet self. And yesterday we did a meditation where we kind of brought ourselves into this spaciousness at our heart. And Buddhists will often visualize that as light, a lotus, a Buddha sending light around us. One of the suggestions I made yesterday was you can feel it like a small key of light, and you nurture that. And whenever there's a question, and you start becoming more sensitive to your feelings, more of that later, feelings of pleasure or displeasure, you know, you start to get I'm uncomfortable, and everybody's going this way, and you're going. So you come back here, and you find that inner place that you can truly trust. And that is at the heart of my book. That's where we're going in many ways. Not against religion, and not against the ego, and not against the world, but just that our spiritual development needs to take first place. And at the moment in our society, certainly, and possibly even across the world, spiritual development is not being recognized, not being encouraged, not seen as important. I know that in the education of children, you know, my career at school ended up, I was head of belief, philosophy and ethics in a large secondary school, and it was always my bugbear, if you like, that huge importance was played on things like maths, even English and sciences, and religious studies, which they called it then until we made the change in our department, was seen as something you want to do that for. Where's that going to take you? Where's that going to take you in your life? So this was other teachers discouraging people to take religious. And I would always go, it's the most important thing. And in the UK, I don't even know if you do this over here. They don't do it in Europe. But we had a very broad education of religion. So we did all the religions. In fact, in our department, we even did things like Taoism and Native American religion and paganism. We brought in all the kind of spiritual ways of being too, so that the students could see that there were choices. There were choices, because what most of them were brought up to be was a very sort of mild Protestant. You know, by mild, they never went to church until they got married. They'd probably be imprisoned there. They'd probably get married there. Well, maybe not even that anymore, but they didn't really think about it. So they didn't. And if you're looking at a world which is so filled with mental illness now, so filled with mental and emotional problems, so many people confused and lost. Surely this is the most important thing. And look at us, we're sitting here, this tiny group, because people are out there running in the park or whatever it is.
I was wanting to know, it sounds amazing, this class that you were teaching. I was wondering, how did the students respond and how old were they?
Oh, they were right up. I mean, I did advanced level with them, which was, and actually one of their choices of subjects was Buddhism. So the UK is great for that, and that there's a lot of variety. So they were up to, when they left school, 17, 18. Yeah. And actually I brought that into the talk yesterday, that if you talk to young people about churches and rituals and history, and even Jesus' life, Muhammad's life, or whatever, then what you get is, it's not relevant.
Yeah.
Just not relevant. But if you do a meditation with them, and I used to do this, where you ask them, I do a visualization where they're kind of in this throng, this busy place, this city. They can't stand it anymore. They want to go somewhere lovely, and they see across the plains a mountain, and they climb the mountain. And then when they find a cave and they sit there, and they have this incredible experience of, you know, a special being, and they give them a gift. Right? What is that gift? Then I say, right, draw the gift, and we talk about it. Then they're just amazed. And then afterwards, you tell them the story of how Muhammad met the angel Gabriel, who then gave them the gift of the Quran. They go, oh. They see that there's, and often a lot of their experiences would be that they saw dead grandmas and things who came to them. But then you would say, well, what relationship did you have with them? And they would say, well, she always loved me, whatever I did. I said, yes, unconditional love. So whenever you need anybody, visualize grandma. So it becomes a tool, because they think grandma is kind of, you know, advising them. But the ones who really get it recognize that grandma is what we would call our higher self. It's them. It's their inner guru. Yeah. And then their gifts would be all kinds of interesting things, but then you can get onto symbolism. So if you teach it like that, they'd love it, because it's about them. It's about us. And if in churches, and you know, I used to go to church, and I've taken children to church since, instead of getting sermons, which were Bible readings, we talked about ourselves and what we go through and what we can do, then you would be on a winner, and the churches would fill up. Because really it's happening in churches in the UK anyway, that they've got a few old people sitting there. The young ones just don't go. It's irrelevant. So there you go. Oh, I haven't rattled on, haven't I? So let me make sure. I really want to do this meditation. Just make sure I've said everything I want. So it's about being part of a movement that puts our spiritual development first and foremost in our lives. We've got that. So we don't have to give up anything. That's the good thing. We don't have to go home and sell your house I wish I'd known that. Oh no, it doesn't matter. It all worked out fine. You don't have to do that. It's just how we manage it and where we place it and what's more important. And mindfulness with attitude looks to the practice of mindfulness as being the spiritual force through developing our awareness of our thoughts and actions. Because when we're talking about spiritual, we're talking about spiritual qualities, yeah? Our spiritual qualities, which is our goodness, our patience, our tolerance, our compassion, our empathy. That's what we are developing. That's what truly connects us with the world and takes us away from looking after number one, which is fear-driven. So we lose things like low self-esteem and fear and lack of confidence because our focus becomes more about connection through developing spiritual qualities. So you can see how that all fits in. So oral wonder at a sunset, you've got another level going on because you know what you're doing. You know why you're connecting to that sunset. You know what it represents, what it symbolizes, how nature reflects our moods and our ways of being. So during the course of this weekend, we will, for some reason I've lost my, what's my little mouse doing, not doing? And now it's stuck. Oh well, I'll just have to remember. It's the content of the course. We will be looking at the nature of the mind, and we're going to do a meditation on that soon. We'll be looking at what are these worldly concerns, you know, what is it out there, and also reflecting on what we are really distracted by. What is it that gets in our way? Because I want this to be personal. It's not just listening to a list, it's personal. And we'll be focusing on emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence, again, as I mentioned yesterday, is the basics of Buddhism even. You need a stable mind, one that isn't scattered all over the place. That's managing the ego. And then we can start to build up an objectivity about our own emotional landscapes and what we can work on practicably every day so that we truly are spiritual beings. And it's not easy, and it's not pink and fluffy. It's not about, you know, wearing the clothes and the malas and turning up and sitting in front of lamas, which is all lovely, but that's not where the hard work is done. This is where the hard work is done. So it would be great if we could do a meditation now on the nature of the mind, so we get a feeling for what it is. We did a little bit yesterday, but we'll do it a little bit more thoroughly now. So you need to get comfortable. I wonder if I can see my people. For some reason, my mouse, you know, I'm not getting can't move anything. Why is that happening? Maybe I just need to, I can make it go back. You see, I can't move this. Oh, it's kind of stuck. This is a touch screen. And I want to go up here, but I can't unless well, you can touch it, but normally, but even when I touch it, oh, you see, that's moving a bit now. Yeah. Although it's not really moving. It's not moving all this. It's stuck for some reason. Yeah. Normally you have, there it is. I found my, so I have to muck around with that, don't I, a bit? Okay, but is it moving? That's not moving anything up and down.
Do you have to click?
Oh, to move things. Well, this is my second. I'm still on my first slide, you see.
Maybe try, yeah.
You want another slide or you wanna,
What I
Yeah.
wanted to do was to just get in touch with these people up here. Now I've got an arrow. So there they are. There's a few people here. And I can see Terry. That's great. How are we doing up there in space? Are we all right? You still with me? Okay. Okay, so let's do anyway, let's do the meditation now. So get yourselves comfortable. So we know the structure of our meditation. We find our posture. We can fiddle around a bit while we move bottoms and get our feet flat on the floor. And somewhere where our hands are going to go. And our back supported and straight. And we start to adjust our breathing. Managing the tensions in our shoulders, anywhere else where we tend to hold tension, maybe our thighs, so just let those go so they drop open, maybe your jaws. It's a common place of gripping on, smooth the face. And as we do all that, we're taking nice, deep, easy breaths. And adjusting our head and neck so that the chin's just a little dropped. Eyes are lowered. You can have them half open if you wish, whatever works for you. And ensure you're doing that lovely belly breathing. Once you breathe in through the nostrils, the belly expands. And then as you breathe out, it distends. Well, with the breath, as we breathe out, it's nice to check the body for more subtle tensions and let go. And at the same time that we're doing this, we're also accepting our environment with its comings and goings, sounds. Let it all happen. You are in a very quiet space, seated where you are, accepting. It's a very useful attitude to just notice how we feel when there's sounds or interruptions, and how we feel when it goes very quiet. If you want to know whether you're feeling pleasure or displeasure, that's a sure way of checking. Because even when we're accepting, we're waiting for things. But actually, whatever's going on is enabling you to find stillness within. We can take lovely deep breaths and hold them and let go, or just relax into a gentle ebb and flow. Whatever suits you. It's always great to start a meditation when you found this lovely balance within you and the quiet and settled. But just check while you're doing the meditation. So we are going to do mindfulness of the breath and then focus on awareness of consciousness, awareness of mind, experiential the nature of our minds. And the reason we're doing this is to recognize the vast opportunities we have to change. Because nothing about the mind is physical, solid, permanent. So be very clear about it once we have this. Your experience, it enables us to work with the thoughts and emotions that arise all the time in our lives. And it's your motivation. We're stabilizing the mind and simply following the breath. In and out. The sensation at the tip of our nostrils. The tiny breeze on our upper lips. And as thoughts arise, let them fall away. As if they've risen to the surface, you've noticed them, and they've floated off. You've made a firm decision to not follow them. Other than mundane thoughts about lunch or profound thoughts, just put them aside. And come back to the breath. And the beauty of this practice is that when our thoughts subside, we find spaciousness. The thought may come again, but when that falls away, there it is. It's always there. Thoughts are like tourists. They come and they go. The mind is the permanent resident. It's one illusion. Beginningless, endless, vast, residing in your body, temporarily. So this is an aspect of you, the conventional self, but it's not led by thoughts or emotions. It's like a mirror. Reflecting back to us our experience. Recognizing feelings of pleasure, displeasure, or neutral. Just knowing it knows. It's perfect clarity. Without judgment. This incredible source of energy is there within us. So focus it intently now into the center of your chest, to your breast, level with your heart. And you can visualize that as you wish, as a tiny Buddha. The beautiful, the orb of light, the lotus. Or as that growing seed, I use the metaphor yesterday, sprouting inside you. Feel that to be a thing of sublime beauty, more beautiful than any sunset. And it's in you. Let it grow and grow and feel strong and nurtured and powerful. Very gently. In the inward, and melt it. You come back to your body in the room. And when we come around, I'm just going to read this passage, which is relevant to what we've just done. Strengthening the inner self. Turning inwards through meditation immediately introduces our external self to our inner self. It's not a formal introduction. It's more like when you're introduced to someone who isn't initially attracted to you. They're polite, they aren't really seeing or hearing a word you say because they're too busy owning your friend. Until you meditate, your external self is like that person, not interested. The ego is out there, living it up, high on sensory stimulation and ego gains. It's not listening to anyone who wants to spoil its fun. Then one day we face some kind of crisis and connect with well-being practices. Meditation is something you're not sure about. It seems so dull, and then boom, you find your inner self. It was there all along, just patiently waiting for you to notice it, not blitzing, but genuine. The attraction ignites. So many people I've worked with describe their first experience of meditation as amazing. It's so peaceful and calm in there. They then expect the same experience every time they meditate. But it's like falling in love. The beginning of a romance is heavenly, and after a while, just ordinary. The ego, addicted to high stimulation, is always disappointed when extraordinary becomes ordinary. But, like genuine love, the familiarity with your mind will lead to much deeper rewards. Remember, meditation means becoming familiar with your mind, getting to know the ego, listening to your inner voice, and strengthening your observational mind. Fall in love with your inner self, make love to it and ask it to marry you, make vows to it in order to protect the marriage and stay faithful. With every outer experience is an inner mirror image waiting to be felt. Do not underestimate the power within. It is the most fruitful and reliable relationship you will ever have. So let's have just a 5-minute break. Okay? And then we'll move on. Right. So let's just have a little bit of an opportunity for questions to do with what we've done so far. And I know that Terry has a question, so go, Terry.
Thank you. So my question is around meditation and this concept of emptying our mind. And I feel like I can never empty my mind. And even to get it to stop thinking, I have to think on my breath, focus on my breath and breathing, or focus on some Buddhist concept, maybe about interbeing.
Yes.
Or my relationship to the cosmos and being a reflection of that. So I struggle with it because I get this idea that where I'm trying to get is for my mind to be completely quiet, but I feel like it never is. I always have to have it on something. And I don't, so that's my question is, what's that about? Will I never, do I misunderstand what I'm trying to be doing? I don't know. Anyway, that's my question. Thank you.
Well, I think do you want the good news or the bad news? Yeah. So the good news is you're not alone. We all struggle with that. And the bad news, there is some bad news because, you know, that's the whole point of aspects of the spiritual path is when you get to a certain point, you need to actually, and we're going on to this, the worldly concerns, you need to take yourself away from worldly concerns because we're constantly being stimulated. You know, what you're being stimulated now. So if I asked you to meditate, you might be sitting there thinking about what I've said or somebody you've seen or where you're going to go next. It's not necessarily profound thoughts. It's just a chatter. It's really ego chatter. And this constant chatter we've been doing since beginningless time, really. So it ain't going to happen quickly. So if we're looking in terms of, well, I know that many, I can't give examples from all religions here, but I know that, for instance, the Christian mystics talk about prayer taking one to oneness with God within, yeah? So there's some similarity there. The Buddhists talk about enlightened mind being when we can attain the view of emptiness, which is non-duality. Yeah. So we know about these things intellectually, but to experience it, moments maybe, or flashes where there's non-duality, and moments when we think, oh, I found a space. And as soon as you say, oh, I found a space, you're thinking, yeah. So that is the point of meditation or practice. And the 4 applications of mindfulness, which are very much a part of the courses that I give, are all about utilizing aspects of the body, like the breath, our physicality, which we're going to be doing in a body scan, and feelings, which I think, you know, that's one of the areas in which we apply mindfulness, because that's that subtle pleasure, displeasure thing, which then prompts a thought or emotion. Yeah. So that's what we're practicing. This is our practice. to stabilize the mind. But the good news, I think I gave you that already, but anyway, there's more good news. It is that while we're practicing that, we do easily develop this observational awareness of what our mind is doing. Yeah. So you have already, even with the nature of the mind, come into a place of knowing that I know I'm chattering. Well, who knows you're chattering? The chatterer or the observer? Yeah? The observer. Because the observer, we call it the observer, you can call it what you like, you can call it Jiminy Cricket if you want, but whatever it is, it's knowing that you're talking and then you catch it and you silence it. And then for sure it's going to come back like a rabbit, you know, it's going to just keep coming back. But this, you're strengthening, which was all about that, that's what that meditation was about. You're strengthening that aspect of yourself that can catch it and slow it down and quieten it down. We can't empty our minds until we've realized concentration. Yeah, can't. And concentration is on an aspect of minds. We actually, even at that stage, you haven't emptied it. And that's a common misunderstanding, that meditation is about emptying the mind. It's really not. You can't do it. And if you say, oh, you know, come and empty your mind, you know, I used to have some Christian evangelists who used to say, if you empty the mind, then you're going to let the devil in. Yeah. I wasn't allowed to teach some parents' children at school because they were Christian evangelists. Don't teach our children meditation because you let the devil in.
But it's so interesting they expect the devil as opposed to angels to come in. You know?
Well, I think they were, you know, they were worried because their child was having a good time. You know, so
pleasure.
yeah, through meditation, but they really saw meditation as a danger. As a danger. This is fundamentalism. This is not what Jesus taught.
Yeah,
This is
I don't even follow them much.
well, there you go. But just coming
Yeah.
back to Terry's point, it's that, you know, and then Gandhi made this incredible statement, you know, the only devils inside us, the only devils that exist are those running around our hearts. Yeah, meaning destructive emotions. Yeah, that's what he was referring to. And he was denying the fact that there's an external devil waiting to come in and grab hold of you. Yeah. So whatever we have going on, it's us. But the important factor is not to identify with them. They're thoughts that we are having, but they're not us. You don't believe everything you think, you know, which is incredibly liberating. And that's liberating for children or anybody who thinks, oh, if you knew what I was thinking, yeah, I'm a terrible person. No, everybody goes to those extremes. It's just a thought. And it's like, just that knowledge, if you could get that across to every teenager, would it transform mental health? Because there's so many destructive thoughts that are brought in through the media, through everywhere. It's all coming at us.
We think we're
They're very vulnerable.
We think we're our thoughts.
We think
identify
we're
as
our
that,
thoughts.
we are.
Exactly. So I hope that has helped. Forget about emptying the mind. And yeah, as I said, the bad news is keep practicing until the end of your life and beyond.
Right. Thank you.
And it will. I mean, you know, if somebody like me, I was not a meditator, I'm very much a doer. And if you can accept that, well, when you do what's important is to notice that you are making a difference, that your thoughts aren't so destructive, that when they come along you can handle them, that you can get some quiet. And there are perhaps certain times of the day, first thing in the morning, for instance, when the mind is quieter, that then you'll get more sense of that inner spaciousness. That's all I can do for you, Terry.
Thank you.
Anybody else, or shall we move on? We've only done slide one. I think we need to move on. Unless you've got a burning question, anybody. We're all right, or
I just wanted to share a comment, because you made this statement and it made me really realize, there was so much sound going on, which I found very and I was trying to accept the sound, and when you said, you think you're accepting, but you're just waiting for it to change and get better.
yes.
And I thought that is so, that was so insightful, because it's, I do feel like, oh, I've accepted it, but I haven't. I'm just waiting for it to change one way or the other.
Yeah.
And that's not accepting.
No,
And I thought I was.
yes.
So it was such a good insight into my own thinking,
yes, yes.
yeah.
And I think that to bring that attitude, for instance, when you're riding on the subway or the train or whatever you call it, you're going from one place to another, and there's always people, and we think we're accepting, but we're just tolerating. We're not making a fuss. We wish they'd go away. And when they get off at the next stop, it will be better. We're tolerating. We're not really accepting. That's always a useful time to be mindful with attitude. That's the attitude that's always coming through. Just watch what your mind is doing. It needs to be not kind of, well, I'll just be in the present, but really watching what the mind is doing. And then it does get easier. Okay, so let's move on a little bit, because I'm gonna get stuck again. Here we are in our hot tub. Well, I don't know. I was trying to find an image which was like, seems to be lots of people, even in Cumbria, which is kind of wet and cold a lot of the time, to have a hot tub outside is. And then I've got a friend who's got a most beautiful house, and she says, I can't sit outside because the people next door are always getting drunk in their hot tub. And I thought, gosh, that's so sad, isn't it? You made this, and she really has got a beautiful home, beautiful garden overlooking all these fields, but the people at the other side, they've got a hot tub. So there's a hot tub. So what are we rebelling against? Well, these are the worldly pursuits. They're known as the worldly concerns in Buddhism. But I thought it would be kind of fun to share these and think of our own, your own particular distractions, because in Buddhism, they're kind of listed as what we want and what we don't want. What we want and what we don't want. So getting and spending, we want that. And then we don't want not to have the money to spend. So it's double-edged. It's always double-edged. So we've got materialism, really. We've got hedonism, sensual indulgence. There they all are in their hot tub with their champagne. You have to have champagne or some kind of cocktail. You have to feel that you're beautiful. And look, they've even got the sea there, but they've got the backs to the sea. So that's why I selected this image. I thought, whatever we've got, we're looking for something, always looking for something that is better. So you know, it's not enough to be able to be on the beach with a beautiful sea. We need this new indulgence. I guess I don't think they're very environmentally friendly either. Anyway, and then the others I've listed as reputation. We want people to think well of us. We want to have some status. We don't like to be invisible. Fame and celebrity, you know, how attractive that is. I'm sure some of us feel that in this world where there are stalkers and where you have no peace at all, that actually we quite enjoy not being famous. So it's you know, not being famous is also part of the worldly pursuits, is that we deliberately avoid fame. So really, what we're talking about, if we're going to develop our spiritual selves, then all these pursuits, which are held as absolute norms in society, are going to get in our way, unless we are really mindful in all those situations. Yes, we can have fun. Please don't think I'm suggesting you should never get into a hot topic. It's not about that. It's not about not having fun. It's just recognizing that it's going to be temporary pleasure. Yeah, it's going to be a temporary pleasure and it's fun. But don't put it on the level of then grasping for more and more sense indulgences. Yeah. And we do that a lot. You know, we have our spa days. You know, our spa days where we have massage, or we go with a group of friends, and we've definitely got to have a prosecco. And you know, we'll have a facial or we'll have a massage, and then we'll go for a swim and a sauna and a jacuzzi and all this stuff, and then you have a lovely meal and you get drunk with your friends, and that's it really. It's like, and then afterwards wasn't that a great day? Yeah, you've got a headache. You may have fallen out with one or two people. But there's this idea that the problem is that we're going, this is happiness. This is happiness. So we'll go on another spa day, or maybe we need to go up to that place that's on the coast where they have, I don't know, different kinds of thermal pools, and that'll be even better. So there's the grasping going on, imagining and being sold in our capitalist society that this will make you happy. Yeah, and that's the problem. Yeah. If we only knew that this was an opportunity perhaps to get to know each other, you know, if we took a different attitude and to listen to each other and maybe go for some walks, then we might actually get more out of it. But the focus is on the continual indulgence of the senses. We're sedated by the norms of society. There's a lovely book called Sedated, and it really caught my eye. I thought, we totally are. We're kind of walking around as if we're on drugs, thinking, yeah, I'll go to this cafe and then I'll do this. And then that would be a lovely day, wouldn't it? I'll have got out. That's what my mother used to say to me. At least we got out. Yeah. You know, it's an expression. We go to a garden centre. And again, what else do you do? You know, there are only so many things you can do in life in your leisure, but our society is so full of distractions that it's very difficult to save some time and energy to put into our spiritual development. Hence, going back to Terry's complaint, that it's really difficult to stabilize the mind. Well, we're constantly stimulating it. So how are we expected to just come to a class and go, oh, lovely, I found it. It's not going to happen. Which is why people go into retreat. Yeah? and you know, some of the requirements, the healthy requirements, where you're likely to have a successful retreat, is when you go into retreat, have no business that needs doing. You'll be settled. Don't go in when you've just fallen in love. Nightmare. Yeah. Absolute nightmare. Mama Yeshe used to say, you complain about not being able to see the deities, but if I say visualize the person you're in love with, boom, it's there immediately. Yeah. And this is the central distraction. We are attributing all those externals to the causes of our happiness. And society, because it knows no better, is supporting that from cradle to grave to keep us sedated. I mean, what are you going to do with a few million spiritual practitioners? That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Doesn't mean to say that we don't make money though. So we're sedated by capitalism.
Would you kind of give a little bit more defining definition between reputation and fame? Because
Yes.
reputation seems to also have to do with fame, or fame has to do with reputation.
Yeah, well, if we think of fame, some people are famous because they are great people, but they're not necessarily. Are you warm enough?
Yeah, I'm like, no, I was just thinking it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Some people are famous, not always for a good reputation. I think you've got an example in the United States, haven't you?
A few.
A few. Well, I can think of one from the UK. I think probably the most famous person in the world, and it's not because it's famous for having a great reputation,
Right.
necessarily. Yeah.
But reputation could be a good reputation or a bad reputation.
Yes, it can
And
be.
people are famous for either or.
Yeah, okay. So reputation is to do with respect. So we want respect. Yeah, we want respect. We want to be admired. We're wanting. Yeah, we don't want to be looked down on or to be seen as a bad person. All that makes us happy if we've got it, and unhappy if we don't have it. It's all wanting. The desire is there. Both of them. So that's why it's all double-edged. Fame and celebrity, well, originally it would have, in the Buddhist teachings, it would have just been status and power. Yeah. Status and power, fame. We want that. We view that as success. Yeah. So if you watch a talk show, when they're all beautiful and they're all being talked, we're kind of, what's their life like? I wish I was them. So we want that. Yeah? What we don't want is to be completely unknown. This is something different from reputation, because when you're unknown, it's not that you've got a bad reputation. It's just nobody gives a damn, nobody knows you. You're that invisible person that walks on the street that's found dead 6 months later and nobody, We don't want that. We want to be loved. We want to be adored. We want to be worshipped. So, yeah, similar. So if you think of capitalism, what I would like you to do in this one is just think about your own life and where we've all got our weak points, if you like. So that's what this course is doing, as well as allowing you to reflect, not just intellectually, looking outside at others, but to think, well, where's my Achilles heel, if you like. So capitalism, its central feature is to make a profit. So therefore, the problem with that, there's nothing wrong with making a profit. In this place exists because it makes a profit, yes, and it's good. But it can lead to potentially unhealthy states of mind, like greed, competitiveness, and a lack of compassion. It can be good if societal values are strongly in place and the individual is aware of how it can create a greedy mindset. So we need awareness. So we can live in a capitalist society, we can make money, but there's always the pressure to make more, and other people might suffer. So we've got to have a philanthropic view as we make it, which obviously is what happens here, is that there's a lot of philanthropy going on, because you've got somebody who's a practicing Buddhist running it, yeah. But we can easily be tricked and turned and justify what we're doing. So that's capitalist society. We live in it. We live in it. So we need huge awareness. We really need that mindful attitude in what we do if we're business people. Materialism can go in hand with capitalism. But if we place comfort and beautiful things above, we can still have comfort and beauty. That's the point of this. All these worldly pursuits, they get in the way if we're not careful. So ideally, if you were a religious practitioner and you were taking it extremely seriously, then, we would renounce, like the Buddha did, and off we go and we cut off our hair, but we're not there yet. And some of us have responsibilities of family, or we recognize that actually I do like to have my comfy home. I do want my sofa TV. And then I like to have my family and friends around. I accept it, that's fine. But recognize where you're at. So there is always a little bit of tension with being a spiritual practitioner and being in the world as we know it. There is, because we're thinking, I'm not renounced. Okay? But if we're guilty about that, that's another obstacle. Yes.
I've heard, many teachers give this quote from nomination, which I love, and I find it so hard to work with it, which is, he says, chocolate's not the problem, the more chocolate, the better, my dear.
Yes.
And it's like, it's so hard for me to want the chocolate but not get stuck into all the other emotions that follow, like, oh, I want more, maybe there's a better chocolate, or, it just so quickly at extreme point into all those unhealthy states of mind come about.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
It is very hard, but denial is also very dangerous.
Yeah.
And we can see that with people, who deny themselves perhaps in a diet. And then at the end of the diet, they've lost 3 stone, but they're back on the chocolate.
Yeah.
And then within a few months, they're back up again, because all they've been doing is denying themselves. Yeah. And there's so much, to be denied around us. Beautiful Indian meals last night, and I'm thinking, oh, I must have a burger before I go back to the UK, even though I don't eat burgers. And a bagel. Oh yes, I've got to have a bagel.
You have to have a bagel.
Yes, exactly. So all these things I have to have it. Doesn't matter whether I want it or I like it, but it's a new thing. But that's a kind of it's a trivial aspect. The point we're making here is that Lama, as you said, enjoy your chocolate cake, and he was famous for that quotation. It's the attachment.
Yeah.
It is purely attachment, and we know that attachment to wanting chocolate, an attachment to not wanting chocolate, And even if you have aversion, you know, you develop aversion to chocolate, it's actually because you're attached to what the idea of the chocolate represents. It all comes out of the ego, ignorance, that we don't understand the way we exist, and we're clinging on to this identity that we have. I like chocolate. At the moment, chocolate might be nice. But maybe I'll move away from chocolate. Rather than this mind that thinks it's the weekend. I can drink Prosecco and eat chocolate, and that will calm me down. That will make me happy. Okay? So, if we're gradually building that inner awareness, it will have the effect, and it will be long and hard won, of recognizing that you're looking for comfort, not for chocolate. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, so that's materialism, hedonism. Yeah, understanding what we mean by the good life. We have this sense of, you know, the good life. This is the good life, isn't it? Our heyday, when there was material wealth, we could do what we want. Well, we've all been going through some tough times, actually, with the pandemic and with wars going on. You know, we're going through a really challenging time. So actually, it can give us an opportunity for finding where genuine happiness lies. You can do it in the love and care for others, rather than the fact that, you know, you can afford a brilliant Christmas, because most of us perhaps won't be able to do that. But if we see that as, ooh, that's terrible, instead of, well, we'll focus on the positive emotions and the love we have for each other, and the care, then it actually becomes an opportunity. Yeah. No, I think it was Truman that said, you know, somebody who is an optimist sees disabilities or problems as opportunities, and the other way around if you're a pessimist. It's that idea, it's taking the hardship and then having the right attitude, and it actually transforms into a positive result for you. And that's a spiritual attitude. Definitely. It's a spiritual attitude. So the happiness lasts as long as the tub is hot.
It's true.
That's true. It's a treadmill of desire. Yeah. And then after a while, you know, you get into a hot tub, and then after a while, oh, it doesn't feel so hot anymore. Oh, well, I get sort of, you change and you go into the sauna, I don't know, all these things you do. The Buddha talked about us as human beings having, if we're on a spiritual path, we've still got dust in our eyes, but it's just a little dust. And we know it's there, yeah? The problem with the society that we're living in is that so many people are blinded, completely blinded by the values of capitalist societies. It's really, really difficult, and it's going to take a lot for us to change, and maybe we do have to go through extremes before we make the changes. Yeah. We can't see the alternatives because we're living in a dust storm. This is just my notes here, that was quite nice. We're living in a dust storm, a bombardment of external carrots. Okay. So reputation, the fear of not being admired, the need for parental approval. That's where that comes from. Yeah, most of us, we want to be approved when we're little. Good girl, you're a good girl. Yeah. So that's where the need for reputation often stems from. Fame and celebrity, the anxious need for role models, identifying with someone who is and has what you aspire to. I was interested in my granddaughter, she's 13, she's gorgeous, and her role model is Taylor Swift. Yeah.
Oh.
Taylor Swift, yeah. And she says she's awesome.
Mm.
So that made me really think of that word, awesome. And of course, we are living in a culture where there are no Buddhas and Jesus running around. We have some wonderful role models, but actually, these people, like Taylor Swift, are the role models for the young. And actually, I don't mind Taylor Swift's mind because she's a strong, independent woman. Elodie sung some of her lyrics. I thought, oh, okay, that's quite nice, So it's kind of a nice message coming over. But still, she sees Taylor Swift as like a goddess. Yeah, she is a goddess. So again, if I asked her to visualize Taylor Swift, not a problem. Ask her to think about Tara. Yeah. But Tara is a genuine goddess. Can't see it, can't touch it, isn't real. Yeah. So still strongly strongly rooted in, if you can see it and touch it, it works. Spiritual rebellion is completely the opposite, isn't it? We're going, what we see and touch is not real, conventionally real, but we're loading it with qualities, yeah, and making it permanent, and actually what is real. So it can be dangerous, overemphasizing the quality of celebrities, and can lead to obsession, like the stalker mentality, where they think their happiness lies in having a relationship with that person. How awful to be stalked, and how awful to be a stalker. Right, so yeah, and then there's this lovely kind of thing. Well, yeah, we know all this, but when are we going to do it? Well, when you're young, when you have fun, and then you have your kids and your jobs, you get on with it, and then as you get older, it's so we miss the opportunity. We have this incredible opportunity in our lives. It's what we call precious human rebirth. It's so short, so brief, and I think the older you get, as me and Sheila sitting here, we're kind of really old, and you're also old. Surely not as old as us. There was pride in being old. But and yeah, all you people sitting out there, you few people, it's like, yeah, the older you get, the more you think, wow, that's going fast. What did I do? What was I wasting my time on? Wow. So now is the time. Now is the time.
I'm always amazed I'm as old as I am.
You're always amazed.
And I'm as old as I am.
I know too.
Wait, I'm still kind of working all out. And you said here, I'm at this limit.
Yes. Yes. But I think if you can get older and you think, well, if I died tomorrow, I'd be pleased that I've done what I've done. Yes, I might think I've made loads of mistakes, but actually I'm pleased, and I hope I have the opportunity in future lives to come into contact with what and who I'll come into contact with, because I cannot imagine who I'd be if I had not come into contact with Buddhism in my 20s. I cannot imagine it. I don't imagine it. Probably be in prison. So here we go. So why are we so easily led? Yeah, let's just touch on these before lunch. This is what we are. We have that's the other thing that comes about finding a spiritual path. Is the reason is because there is always this sense I mean, it is identified as the first noble truth that life is discontentment. This subtle and not extreme. We can see terrible suffering, terrible, terrible extreme suffering, gross suffering we call it. But there's this subtle suffering that we all have, that is not quite right, that maybe tomorrow, or we'll do this later, or at some point I'll be happy. It's a yearning, it's an itch within us all. And fear. This is why we're so easily led. We have no control over anything. Our bodies, who stays with us, who leaves us, put all your love into your children and then they bubble. Go with unsuitable partners who don't like you or what that, I mean, I've heard some really sad stories and grandparents who aren't allowed to see their grandchildren because they've partnered them. Well, it's a very, very sad stories. Can you imagine when you put all that energy into those children? They fill your lives up with love. And I'm talking from my own experience here, but even if you have a partner, you don't have children, you'll have relationships. Yeah. Yeah, you'll have relationships and you have no control over whether those people, they will die or whether they get sick. We can't even hold on to a sense of ourselves because we're always changing. Youth, sickness, death, old age, society's ideas of beauty and the pressure to be certain ways. You can see the pain of that in many people, many young people. The suffering, pervasive feeling, and the gross, the pain, the grief. Yeah, even if you've had quite a blessed life, you cannot avoid it. And fear, it's not fear and anxiety that came with COVID, I think. Heard of a lot of people experiencing anxiety, really shook people's concept of stability. Especially those perhaps that were living pretty stable, solid lives. It's like war. Changes everything. People lose people. Insecurity, breakup of relationships, having to move home, losing homes, changing jobs. That, you see, we've gone through a lot of. So in many ways, I think this is the perfect time, spirituality, for people to be searching for a spiritual way of life. If only we could crack that. Yeah.
I feel like this is sort of a roadmap for capitalism. The one should be discontent and be afraid and insecure and have all these desires.
Yeah. They want you to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feeding
to it. Yeah. But I think certain people, perhaps the younger generation, I don't know, but you need to be very strong. That might be seen through that. It's very hard, very hard. So insecurity, financial barriers, lack of community, desire, fueliness.
No comments on you said a trend of desire. Now I was thinking, like now that's the speed of that is out of control. Like when we were growing up, it was easier somehow.
Yeah.
Now it's insane.
It
is. Kids.
Oh, well, they're not thriving because of it. They have anxiety. They have eating disorders. It's frightening. I'm frightened. The suicide rates are up. Depression. Children suffering from depression. Yeah.
Well, I think growth is so elevated now.
Yes. Yeah. But it is because of these factors that we bury ourselves in worldly pursuits. Yeah. And the worldly pursuits equally can be drugs. You're getting out of your head. And you think getting out of your head is going to solve your problems. Yeah. So you would think that this is the time for,
And also the whole internet Oh,
Oh.
that has really, I think, run everything off from like when you grew up,
Yeah,
like communications and
yeah.
animations being out there.
So we come to the application of mindfulness, and we'll start with that this afternoon. So what we've established so far is I hope, that this is understanding of what we mean by a spiritual path, and getting to grips with the ego and all the external factors that are out there. But we have to, we really do have to rebel against it. But we need community as well to do that. And finding a way to do that can be our life's work. Yeah. But reaching the people, we have to also be in the world. So if it takes social media to reach them, then instead of going, oh, we don't do that, we've got to do it. If that's how we are going to help as people who are engaged with the spiritual path, see the dangers of other people. So our physical world is so real, it's hard to ignore. We're sensory beings, we're dominated by this body and the external world. So all the time, regularly, and we don't need to meditate. But coming back to the inner self is just finding a quiet space, even if you're just standing in front of a tree. You just notice how beautiful actually Brooklyn is for somebody who's never been here. These beautiful streets full of trees and the autumnal colours. I walked through Prospect Park, and again, you have people who are running through it and have no idea what's on their mind, or you know, they're having romances, or they're talking about work or whatever. But that is providing us, and I'm not criticizing them. I'm not saying they're all doing it wrong. I don't know what's in their heads, but there's a danger to even not see the park, yeah, because you've got so much going on in your head. In fact, there's an image which I use quite a lot in my slideshow. It's in this one, of a person and a dog in the park, and the dog is seeing everything, and the person, there's a bubble above it, and there's, you know, bills, relationships, car, all this stuff going on. And it's the message of mindfulness, be in the park. And if you're in the park, it's not just about being present, it's the fact that you are getting in touch with your inner self. So it's twofold what you're getting from it, which is why it becomes restful. You know, because you're actually internalizing the park, the beauty of the park. Or if you see, you know, a child crying or somebody who's homeless, and some compassion, because you're there, you see it, you're internalizing the compassion then, and it's helping you. So it's an opportunity. And myself sort of walking around and seeing how beautiful it is, and thinking how many people walk these streets and never see it. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. And this afternoon we will start with dangerous to start with a body scan after lunch, but anyway, everybody falls asleep. But we'll tuck that in and look. I think mindfulness of feelings is a really subtle activity, but it enables us to really notice how thoughts and emotions arise. When we really get in touch with that, oh, that made me feel nice. Oh, didn't like that, like we did in the meditation. Just noticing that, because they preempt the ego to then justify why we didn't like it. Yeah. So we're having the experience, and there's a noise, and rather than just psh, there's the feeling of displeasure, and then the thought that preempts the ego to go, why are they making that noise? I don't like that noise. I need to talk to them about it. They're messing up my meditation. It leads to a story. That's the ego solidifying itself. Yeah. Just that simple feeling. So it's a really interesting place to start. So have a lovely lunch. What time are you back? 2:30?
2:30?
2:30?
Yeah, time. That's what Tucker said, so 2:30?
Yeah, lovely. So where are you all? Are you still there? Hmm? Yeah, Tara's still there and Sheila's still there. So enjoy your lunch and please come back at 2:30. We look forward to it. Okay, thank you.
Just stop, yeah, it's a long.